Well, welcome viewers. JWA theologist since 1994. Who is ruling Australia? A behavioural political analysis and more so a therapy journey for those that are confronted with institutional abuse and political abuse as well. When Australians started realising their rights stood above the system. Episode 20. Very controversial subject because this treads right on the toes of the spirit driving this institutional and political decay. I'm going to repeat it, episode 20. When Australians started realising their rights stood above the system. In episode 19, I explored the moment Australians began choosing truthful recognition over the emotional comfort of managed illusion. Well, in this episode, I'm going to examine the deeper awakening that follows, the recognition that inherited constitutional protections were designed to restrain institutional power itself. Because at first, most Australians still believed the institutions were the source of their rights. Government granted freedom, agencies protected dignity, systems preserved justice, authorities defined legitimacy. That assumption felt natural enough after generations of expanding administration, procedural dependency, and institutional centralisation. Then slowly, another recognition began surfacing beneath the national exhaustion. Rights that came only from institutions can also be withdrawn by institutions. A man sits silently inside a hospital waiting room while another compliance announcement echoes softly overhead. Nobody reacts anymore. People continue scrolling, waiting, adapting beneath the fluorescent lighting like exhaustion itself has become part of the architecture surrounding ordinary Australian life. But somewhere underneath the silence, another question begins forming. What protects the citizen once the institution itself becomes unstable? And that question, viewers, changes everything, because Australia's inherited constitutional and Christian foundations were never originally constructed upon the belief that government was morally ultimate. In fact, it's the opposite. Government itself was understood to require restraint. Power was limited because authority answered to higher law. Conscience was protected because human dignity preceded the state. Speech mattered because truth could not belong exclusively to rulers, and families mattered because civilization was never meant to be built entirely upon administration. And those protections were not perfect, but they formed a barrier between the citizen, the Australian, and the unlimited institutional expansion, that being the Australian government. And somewhere beneath modern exhaustion, Australians are beginning to feel what happens when those restraints weaken. And the paradox deepens further. The more institutions claim to protect people, the more psychologically managed many citizens begin feeling underneath the protection being offered. Every crisis expands oversight. Every instability increases procedural reach. Every uncertainty strengthens dependence upon systems already struggling to emotionally stabilise the population beneath it. A woman sits quietly at a kitchen table beside another rising utility bill, while political language continues promising fairness, safety, inclusion, and reform. The words still sound passionate, but her body increasingly experiences them as distance. And viewers, that contradiction matters enormously, because eventually populations begin recognizing the difference between legitimate protection and institutional illusion. Legitimate protection preserves conscience, dignity, responsibility, truthful speech, moral agency, and limits on power itself. Institutional illusion preserves dependence, emotional management, behavioural compliance, procedural expansion, narrative control, and endless adaptation beneath instability. Australians are beginning to sense the difference intuitively, not through ideology, through accumulated pressure. The more unstable life becomes, the more people begin searching for protection stronger than political language and action itself. And hidden beneath decades of forgetting, older truths slowly begin resurfacing. Government is not God. Rights are inherited, not manufactured. Freedom requires moral restraint. Human dignity cannot be reduced to administrative usefulness. Authority remains accountable to higher judgment beyond institutional survival. And those ideas were never completely destroyed, only buried beneath modern political management culture until exhaustion itself started uncovering them again. The waiting room feels quieter now, and somewhere beneath the institutional fatigue, another truth slowly begins surfacing. And I ask you to listen to my closing statement very carefully. Australia begins recovering when its people remember their rights were designed to stand above illegitimate institutional illusion, not beneath it. I'm Dr. JWA, theologist, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and I'll see you in the next session.